New York Rangers are the only team right now that makes sense. Talking about John Tortorella, by the way. And the reason why I feel like that is no disrespect to Peter Laviolette. It's because James Dolan, the owner, loves John Tortorella, and he makes sure he emphasizes that word. All right, yeah. So Darren Dreger was on a podcast. It was a Flames Nation, I think it was. And this is verbatim. I'll type this out verbatim, what he said on there. If anyone's following me on Twitter, I posted this on the 31st at 11:58 p.m. So the commentary from Dreger begins at the 3-minute and 20-second mark. It's only like a 5-minute clip, but it begins at the 3-minute and 20-second mark. And he says, I mean, for me, New York Rangers are the only team right now that makes sense. Talking about John Tortorella, by the way. And the reason why I feel like that is no disrespect to Peter Laviolette. It's because James Dolan, the owner, loves John Tortorella, and he makes sure he emphasized that word. And that owner has a ton of clout. Let's see what happens. If they miss the playoffs in New York, all bets are off. I mean, maybe Chris Drury has some vote of confidence that he's coming back as GM, but I can't be sure of that. I don't know that to be certain. What I do know is that, again, you have a very hands-on, volatile owner who's not going to sit back and go, no, okay, status quo works. I'm comfortable with the way things are. And to boot, he does like John Tortorella. So that would be a scenario that does make some sense. And given the fact that this team is still a largely veteran-based team, it might make some sense from Tort's perspective as well. One thing I want to comment on before I hand it over to you guys there is that the words is still a largely veteran-based team. That might not be as much of the case of do reunions ever work? Yeah, we know Mark. That's why he's literally face palming and shaking his head right now. But yes, it's literally a team that could be overhauled this offseason, and it could look a lot different. I don't know whoever the GM is, because he's probably going to be given another chance. Whether or not he deserves that is another story, but he might get that chance, and Drury might go to Panarin and say, hey, you know what? They're not going to re-sign you after this next year, and we're going to look to go in a different direction. And does he agree to waive at that point? I mean, it's. I'm not saying it's guaranteed or a lock or anything like that, because I can see your face, Mark. I know where you're going with that face, but
I'm going to let Anthony talk first.
It's just a possibility. I'll tell you that right now. But I'll send it over to Anthony and let Anthony take the floor here.
I just have 2 minutes left, but I mean, Torch was certainly, he's a polarizing figure. He's outspoken. I think, with a more veteran group, I think he'd be a good fit. My only thing is that, which Rich is saying, I thought I remember saying this too when he first got to Philly. I thought somewhere along the way he had made a comment about this possibly being his last run before he hangs him up. So I don't know if that's changed or if that's accurate, but I just wonder if he wants to step away now. I mean, if not, and he does want to coach again, would he come back to New York? I mean, he had success there. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be open to it. It just really comes down to what Dolan wants to decide to do. If the Rangers miss the playoffs, is Laviolette definitely gone? Is Chris Drury going to be allowed to be the one that makes that decision? There's a lot of balls in the air there, but I mean, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Torts back to the Rangers. I know, Mark, I think clearly hates the idea of it, though. You could see from the minute that there you go. Yeah.
Anthony, and again, if you looked at the Big Apple Hockey Twitter on this, I made this comment. Look, I love John Tortorella. Looking back on him, great coach, great time with the New York Rangers. He brought them really from being in a borderline 8 seed to a non-playoff team to a first in the conference team. He's won playoff series with them. He won 3 of them. And you like a guy that holds his players accountable, but his time has come and passed. It's gone. Alain Vigneault was the reaction to Tortorella. And then Gerard Gallant was the reaction to David Quinn. Phil, you're right. The Rangers need to get younger. First and foremost, the Rangers need to get younger. and you say this is mostly a veteran team. This team should not be a veteran team by the end of next year. And that's sort of why I was against, by the end of starting next year, I should say. That's why I was sort of against the JT Miller trade. I've warmed up to it since. And yeah, you could just say reunions don't work. But in the case of Tortorella going back to the Rangers, no. You need a guy that's going to come in, coach up the kids and develop them and get them to be better. Now, Torts can be that coach. We've seen the good results in Tampa Bay where he coached up that core to be great players. You see guys like Travis Konechny who really, you could say that maybe Vigneault had a hand in that one. But then you see what he's doing with Michkov or even Chris Kreider in the past and always said, look, you need to go through the process. Torts is very big on going through the process and telling somebody to go sit if he thinks they need to sit. So they're not getting maybe a little too arrogant or anything like that. This guy cares, and he does care about his players. We know about the behind-the-scenes fights and stuff like that. But Philk, I gotta go with that. It's not the right time for Torts, and don't just get him because he's John Tortorella. Bring him back and think that's all going to work. If Mike Keenan came back to the New York Rangers, he wouldn't be as good of a coach as he was, and he wasn't. He's a little bit overblown by Ranger fan standards because, as we talked about before, they sort of rallied that locker room against Mike Keenan at one point. No, they don't need John Tortorella. Just thank you for your time. I enjoyed it. I look back on it fondly. Please do not make me relive any of this.
I see where Dreger's coming from, and it's just spitballing with Dreger, but that's just his opinion on things. I just don't think it's the right fit and the right time. If they go veteran and they just rehaul and they bring in other veterans, then maybe, like I said, it was John Della Pena that actually brought it up. I was corrected on our last stream, but it was John Della Pena that brought it up and said that the Rangers deserved Mike Keenan after that 92-93 season. They deserved it. And if any of these guys are still back, like outside of like your Millers and Coolies and stuff like that, like if the Zibanejads and the Kreiders are back here next year, then they deserve that type of coach. That's what they deserve. They deserve the disciplinarian who's not going to take their shit, who's going to call them out. The entitlement from this core has been obnoxious, and that's why I'm saying, those guys need to go. But if they're somehow back, which would be a big mistake, then they deserve a coach like this.
I see the name Bruce Boudreau coming through. That would be the only retread I would consider.
Sullivan.
But Bruce Boudreau, he's like the Marty Schottenheimer of hockey.
Offense, no defense.
Yeah,
He'll get you. He'll get everything out of everyone offensively, but he does not get teams to play defense.
And Phil, I'm sorry. There was one other one that came through just now in the comments because Rich was bringing up the possibility of Mark Messier being
no.
And again,
zero experience. I know that there was an article that somebody on Twitter brought up from like 12 years ago saying that, or 11 years ago, whatever it was, saying that he would love to, have Messier in, or Messier said that he would coach and was waiting for an invite. Messier has not done anything in 21 years of being retired to get himself prepared for this type of position. And not as a general manager either. He has done nothing within any organization that anyone knows about. He's not been listed in any positions. He's not any type of assistant general manager, anything like that. There is zero reason to believe that Mark Messier is anywhere prepared for any type of coaching or executive role. So
let's just say he's far away from where Brian Trottier was.
Yeah, and Brian Trottier at least was an assistant coach with Colorado for years.
And he won a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
It's just the Rangers, Philk, have done the inside-the-box idea for so long. Start thinking outside the box. Start looking at David Carl.
It's got to change.
Start looking at Carl. Try to get him out of Denver. And
yeah, David Carl, Mike Sullivan would be, if we're going retreads, Mike Sullivan would be right at the top of my list. I mean, that guy's a proven winner. So,
yeah. I mean,
talk about him with Crosby and Malkin and having all those guys at their primes when he won his 2 Stanley Cups. Take a look at what he's done to try to keep that franchise afloat afterwards with the rosters he's had because of poor general managing from Jim Rutherford and Kyle Dubas making terrible moves, bringing in Erik Karlsson, bringing in all these other guys, forgetting the defense, signing Tristan Jarry to that awful deal. I mean, listen, I get why people would be detractors on Sullivan. But for me, Sullivan's last few years have built his case up for me. And Cooper's not moving. Don't even think about John Cooper moving.
Yeah.
No.
Also, because
he's not.
I'm
He's going to retire him.
Keeping him forever.
He loves it here. He's beloved in the community here. You would not believe how beloved this guy is in the community here. You really wouldn't. I'll tell you right now, you wouldn't. Because I remember being down here in 2003, 2004, and I couldn't find a place to watch Tampa Bay Lightning hockey back then. Tampa Bay Lightning hockey is ingrained in this community down here. And I'm 45 minutes from Tampa, and there's still advertisements. I was in Dunedin yesterday, and yes, Cooper is a Hofstra guy.
I'm going to throw this name out there for a minute. Maybe you look at Dave Haxtell.
I mean, I like what he did with Seattle, but he couldn't sustain it for more than a year.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, they were another team. They were a PDO team. A lot of guys that were having high shooting percentages years, like Jared McCann had that 40-goal year, and Vince Dunn having a 65-point season. And a lot of their guys regressed, and he just couldn't. Listen, I've been a fan of Dave Haxtell since his North Dakota days. I followed North Dakota. So I do like Dave Haxtell. I hope Dave Haxtell gets another chance somewhere. But I tend to wonder about him. He did a nice job with Philly, and he did a good job with Seattle to get Seattle to the playoffs. And then he beat the defending Stanley Cup champions.
The first time an expansion team ever beat the defending Stanley Cup champions in their playoff debut.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but yes, yeah, that's it. So
yeah.
For me, it's Haxtell is a guy that I want to see him have success, but I don't know if he's the right fit for this team. Would I be willing to explore? I would take him over some of the other names that were probably out there, but I don't know. Jay Pandolfo would be an interesting one. He was a smart player.
I gotta say, that's not the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
No, it's not.
If you want to talk about a player that would come out and be a great head coach, or at least a good coach in the league, saying Jay Pandolfo's name with the experience of winning Stanley Cups in New Jersey. He was, sorry, everybody. Anyway, the experience of winning Stanley Cups in New Jersey, the experience of being the captain at Boston University through national championships, and the tragedy because he was on that team, that he was the captain of that team Travis Roy got injured on. So
yeah,
dealing with adversity with that.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.